Good morning. My name is Donnie Glover, and you're watching BlackUSA.News. We're here with the one and only Marsha Jews. If you've never met Marsha Jews, you are about to meet a phenomenon. It's the end of the week. It's Friday.
That sounds like a song. Thank God it's Friday, Friday, Friday. Oh, no.
We have a guest with us today. Her name is Dr. Pearson. And Marsha, she's going to discuss something that I am very fascinated with, have been my entire life. I'll let her tell you. Good morning, Dr. Pearson.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good to see you both and have an opportunity to share what I think is some important and critical information about Native American ancestry, Black and Native American ancestry, or what I would like to call Black red roots, and how many of us have that Black red roots connection in our ancestry. And we've heard about it through kind of family rumors and family hearsay, but never have really taken the time to just investigate it, to do research on it, to prove it true or perhaps not true. And so what I've done over the last approximately 20 years is to do research into my own family ancestry after I heard from an older sister that as my grandmother was passing away, she had shared a family secret, the Native American family secret. And so that by that sharing, it piqued my curiosity. I know just from appearance, and generally that's how people judge or estimate or even evaluate whether or not you've got Native American ancestry. They look at your colorization, they look at your hair texture, perhaps the shape of your nose, and a number of other kind of stereotypes that through movies and books that we've kind of been acculturated to believe. But when I started to investigate it, I saw there certainly are some traits that are Native American traits, but a lot of what we view as being Native American isn't. And it's a stereotype that's been perpetuated just for years and years and years, along with American history. There's certain American history, but there's also Native American history from their perspective. In terms of what happened in the colonization of what is indeed their native or home land or their indigenous lands. So I did the investigation on that to find out was what my grandmother said accurate? Not that I had any reason to doubt it, but just to know for myself so that I could pass it down to my daughter and to the generations to come. Because when you seek out your ancestry, it pleases the ancestors as well as it pays dividends. It pays off in the richness of culture that will be passed on from generation to generation. And so that's...
Doc, let me just jump in here. When did Black people first come to this country?
Well, Black people, it's at least perpetuated that they came to this country as slaves. But there is certainly evidence that they were already in this country even before the slave trade began. And I've recently done some studying about that also with Tavis Sanders. But prior to, the slave trade, certainly there was Native Americans already in this nation. And that's one of the kind of reasons why the true portrait of what a Native American looks like has been caught up in stereotypes. They were dark-skinned people, and everyone's skin generally has an undertone to it, whether it's red or it's yellow or it's purple or whatever it happens to be. But Native Americans were dark-skinned people. They were also people that...
Before we go too far, it's safe to say that melanin comes from Africa.
I would say it's safe to say that, since Africa is the cradle of civilization. Even that's disputed, but that is indeed a fact also.
I didn't know that was disputed. I thought the oldest DNA on Earth comes out of Namibia, where the San Bushmen come from. They have the oldest DNA on Earth, and in their face is the face of humanity. As a matter of fact, their eyes are very tight, if you will. And so where we often say Black people have Chinese eyes, the truth is
They
those
have our eyes.
they have our eyes.
That's exactly correct. And when I say that that's even debated, is that there are people that just won't grasp that fact.
They're not going to.
Right. And so they will debate that. And
Science has already proven it.
Exactly, if you believe in science.
Right. And many of those people don't.
Well, if you believe in who the scientists are.
Right, I would certainly agree with that.
And I say that because down in Brazil, there was a discovery made in the 70s of some bones found in a cave. They named the bones Luzia, Luzia.
Yes, yes, yes.
And as they ran her DNA, they were 14,000 years old. Now, we were told that the Native Americans from Asia who came through the Bering Strait came here 12,000 years ago. But we know that there was at least a Black woman and her peoples in Brazil, South America, 14,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and there's even information to predate that. If we look in Africa and some of the antiquities that have been discovered, I wrote a book a number of years ago, Invisible Mathematics, because I am indeed a mathematician and a statistician. And I wrote a book, Invisible Mathematics, in which mathematics has been demonstrated by Africans and African Americans since the beginning of time. The limba bone, that was a baboon bone that had notches in it, indicating a counting system. And an aerial view of the villages demonstrate patterns of symmetry, such that would only come about with higher level knowledge of mathematics. And so there's a lot of things that people just don't know about in terms of Native Americans and African Americans that, through programs like yours, both of yours, people become more aware of.
Dr. Pearson,
Yes,
how
please.
did you get in? What is your background? You have a doctor in front of your name and a PhD. What is your area of study, and how did you get into that area of study? And where are you now to where you thought you'd be?
Yes, I got into originally nursing, and I got a full scholarship to a nursing school in Ohio. And after finishing all of my classes, I discovered that just wasn't exactly what I had a passion for. And I think I was headed more towards it was a free education. And so I accepted it. But then I left nursing and went into engineering and completed an associate degree in engineering technology, a bachelor's degree in engineering technology, electronic and electric engineering. And then I moved from there and kind of transitioned into computer studies, and I got a PhD in education, mathematics and science education. And that set me up with the background to do research, and research that some would consider tedious types of research, in which you're looking at numbers and facts and patterns and things of that nature. And then finding out about my history from my sister, I used those research skills to
What did your sister tell you?
She told me that as my grandmother was older and expected to pass away, she told my sister that we're really Native Americans. And we've been living in an African American culture because you fit in where you can get in.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
coming from the southeast, Alabama specifically, in that area, African Americans were looked at more highly than Native Americans were. And there was always this thought or this fear that if you were identified as a Native American, you would be sent off to a reservation. Mm-hmm. And there are older people of African descent that still have those fears that if they were revealed to be Native American, they would be sent away or have Native or Indian roots or background, ancestry, that they would be put on a reservation. And of course, that's not true, but that's that embedded fear. And that's part of the blood memory as natives and indigenous people, that we carry a memory of trauma and things that happen that still guide our decisions and directions we go in.
So the trauma is losing the war.
There's several traumas. Certainly losing the war. There's the trauma of the Trail of Tears, the Great Removal, where Native Americans were marched in it was the kind of the early to mid 1800s from the southeast all the way across the United States into what was going to be considered Indian territory. And this was through wintertime weather. And when they reached that march or Trail of Tears, once they got there, the older people had died out.
Right.
And the younger people had died out. Right. So all that was left there was their past was gone, and so was their future. Mm-hmm. And now, so there's
Trail of Tears, let me just interject.
Yes.
It is assumed that the blacks on the Trail of Tears were slaves.
That is an assumption, but it isn't a true assumption.
I thank God you said that. Why did you say that? And I'll tell you why I said it.
I say it because there's a need for African Americans to be attached to a slave history,
right,
rather than an indigenous history. And there's a need to say, well, Native Americans, after they became more colonized, they had slaves too, and they also adopted slaves, and that's why you have the freedmen and you have this and that and the other. But that's why I say that.
So when you look at the Africans who actually came to this country, how did they come, and what century was that they were able to get here, and how did they get here?
That's a great question, Marcia. And I'm going to jump in and say that we didn't come at just one time.
Right. There were waves of people. So can you talk about your research with that?
Well, my research at that was that Africans were more technologically sound thousands, hundreds of years ago than people are now.
Right.
And they were able to build ships and vessels to come across the ocean and arrive over here in this country. And people want to think that the only ship that we took was the slave ship. And that's absolutely untrue.
So do you know what hold on, Donnie. Do you know what those years were, or what was happening at that time when we think that they migrated to this continent?
Well, I think there's a number of different thoughts, and I would kind of hazard to put out any of them to be exactly true, just in terms of my research. It sounds like you've done some research on it or know some background on it, but there are certainly a number of different things that were going on, just, voyages, the ability to travel to distant lands. And I wouldn't want to put a time frame around it with the thought that I might misquote the dating.
Well, it's Black History Month, so I'll be the daring one.
Go be daring. That's not unusual. So just go. Cheers.
So we know in Nevada, Dr. Pearson, that there's the discovery of Kincaid's Cave.
Go ahead, say more.
It has Egyptian artifacts found in it in Nevada. We also know that there are over 450 mound pyramids across North America.
Yes.
We also know that down in Mexico,
Yes.
there are the Olmec heads, OLMEC, and they are at least 2,500 years old. And although there are some who want to claim that they look like them, they look very African to me. Pleptoid nose, full lips. We also can look at Mansa Musa, and I think he was about 1400, Marcia, where, and I could be wrong about that, but Mansa Musa, who was the wealthiest king in the world, he lived in Mali, but his brother, he took his brother's place because his brother voyaged to this part of the world and never went back. Now, he could have gotten lost, but he had several ships, big ships. And then lastly, let's go to the ship making.
Right.
There are those from Europe who somehow think or somehow paint a picture like ships are new to Africa, a continent surrounded by water. When in fact, the Egyptians were sailors. We are the first sailors. But I wanted to get to a specific point.
Yes, go ahead.
The transatlantic slave trade started somewhere around the time that Columbus got the Portuguese and the Spanish to send him to North America. Interestingly, there was always a Moor navigating these ships. Why?
Because the
Moors had been traveling those waterways prior to the Portuguese and the Spanish sponsoring Columbus. So Columbus was a follower. He was a Johnny-come-lately at best.
Yes, and you mentioned the transatlantic slave trade, and the purpose of that was to bring over workers that were familiar with the crops that would grow in the United States. They had knowledge of that from Africa.
Been there before. That's right.
Exactly. As well as they made an attempt to enslave the Native Americans, but because the Native Americans were more familiar with the territory, they couldn't. And so as they brought more and more Africans over to enslave them, they knew that they weren't as familiar or not familiar at all with the territory.
And less likely to escape.
Yeah,
exactly.
They didn't know where to go or how to get there. Right.
Exactly.
So this is a very interesting journey that you went on. And so you've written all these books. And what would you say to those young people who are watching this to learn more about who they are and their heritage?
I think that's absolutely critical because you can certainly self-identify and or you can accept an identity someone else has given to you. And I think generally that's the easiest route to take, to simply accept what has been given to you. It's the fit in where you can get in kind of model. Or you can do the research. And now with so much technology, so much big data, so many records available that has been digitized, you can do a lot of research just on your own, whether it's DNA research, whether it's census reports, whether it's a family Bible that has names in it of birth dates and baptismal dates and things of that you can indeed trace records. Find out who you are and then live in it.
So Dr. Pearson, Skip Gates says that only 2 to 3% of us have indigenous blood, and he is revered in certain circles as a noted historian that supposedly knows what he's talking about. He said that 2 to 3% of us, Black people, have indigenous blood. Secondly, when you go to take one of those Ancestry.com tests, or whatever it is, they check your DNA, I submit that because of racism, there is no collection labeled indigenous to America.
Wait, say that again a different way.
They are telling us who we are when we know we have native blood. What are they using to get to determine that we are from everywhere else but from right here? I just don't believe all of us came in the bottom of a slave ship. I believe some were here and lost the war. Where is their DNA?
Well, I think there's a number of different responses to that. When you're testing DNA, it's generally based on a standard of people that have already been tested and approved to be of a certain ancestry. And Native Americans have, for the most part, shied of what we consider Native Americans have shied away from taking those kind of tests for mistrust. And even now, they're saying that if you take a DNA and it's put in an FBI database and they find out that you're related to a criminal or that you are one, the ancestry company that has taken your DNA has to turn that over to them so that they can use that as evidence. So it makes people more reticent to even take a DNA test. You mentioned Skip Gates, and I certainly respect him as a researcher, but my research says something different. You know, he has the TV program, he has the Harvard Institution behind him, but I found something different.
And Harvard is a direct beneficiary of slavery.
Yes.
And it taking Indian land also.
Mm-hmm. And Hopkins. So don't forget that, who had slaves. So your DNA says something different. So when we look at his percentages from 2 to 3%, what are your percentages, and what do you think? And what does your research show you?
Well, I think it's much higher than that tiny percentage. I know when I took a DNA test, it came out tripartite, which was a surprise. It came out Lemba from Yemen, and there's been a lot of documentaries done on the Lemba people, Lemba of Africa, Yemen. It came out Chera, which is Cherokee, and then it also came out Irish. And so I know I'm a mixture of a number of different things, like most of us are, because of the enslavement.
So I got to ask you, Doc, have you ever filled out an application for job, college, credit, and put down white?
No, I haven't.
But
No,
you have a right to.
Perhaps, but no, I haven't.
I think every Black person ought to fill out every application from here on out white.
Why?
To see who comes out the back and says, "Hey, prove you're white."
Well, you'll find that most
Because you're gonna get a better. You're gonna get a better credit score. You're gonna get a car note. You're gonna get a cheaper.
So I should change the box on my license. Say Caucasian. And but you gotta change the zip code too. So you gotta have a zip code. Wait, now you gotta have a zip code. You can't come with no donkey.
I should have cautioned you. You are in the middle of a comedy. We do news. This is Friday.
But this is us all the time, Dr. Pearson. But the reality is that we don't know. And you want to go and do the little test to find out, but then did your family really, even anybody in your family, so did they ever do it? And how do you know who these people are if nobody got the test?
No, certainly after I did a DNA test, I tested my daughter, I tested my grandson, I tested my husband, I tested my brother, I tested my cousin. I tested as many people as I could so that I could triangulate the information I was getting. Mm-hmm. And I think people don't trust DNA because they don't know what they're going to do with it. First and foremost, it could partially be used against them in some manner. But I think people need to know when I said, well, the DNA says I'm Native American, I've got Limba, African roots. People told me, why do you want to be hated in two races or ethnicities? Pick one and stick to it.
Really?
Yes.
That's interesting. And what was your reply?
I said, well, I want to respect and honor all of me, all of my ancestors.
Right.
Marsha, what would you have told them? Don't cuss.
Oh, I can't cuss? Then you already know.
I would have told them something a little more.
I would not have been as polite as, because you know.
She would told them, first of all, mind your damn business.
That's, well, something on that order. It would have been.
She would have used some fingers involved, some fingers, communication, sign language.
I can understand.
But I think that there are too often there are people who try to figure out who you are just by the look.
Right.
The assumptions of who you are and where you're from and how you got there. And I know that somewhere, and I have not done my test, and I know that my natural mother and her family have done some things. And so they said that they have done it and they know some of the people that were part of that history. I haven't done that research. I'm not necessarily interested in having my DNA on file.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I don't see me doing anything, but you never know what I might do. But I would not, I'm not interested. And people try to make assumptions about me. And until I open my mouth, and then they know.
So Dr. Pearson, I wanted to say that we're so glad to have you because so many people out there have questions, and I'm glad you shared, you know, how some people would want us to hide who we are or deny our ancestry. I put up a video years back, and that's when I first met Tavis and Renee Sanders about Black Indians. And I remember someone saying, Donnie, why are you trying to be anything but Black? And I wanted to say to that person, go do your homework and stop listening to what other people tell you about you.
Right.
Instead, go listen to your grandparents. Go find where your grandparents are from. You know, I can't let anybody tell me who I am.
That's right. So, Dr. Pearson, do you have you created a website or books that people can read and learn more about your work and how they can? I mean, you've done how many years worth of research?
Over 20.
Over 20 years. So you have 20 years. You probably have somewhat similar to an encyclopedia, if not more, with all of the documentation that you've gathered throughout the years. How could people get in touch with you? And moreover, your research, you have some of it published, and do you have some of it documented in video?
Certainly, I've published several books and book chapters. Black Red Roots. It's carried by, you know, the online vendor that most people have books in, Amazon. The Black Red Roots, as well as a book I've got right here. I'll just hold this up if I could, not to do an advertisement or anything.
We want you to do all that.
Okay.
Put it up there so we can see it. Okay.
The Mathematics of Blood Quantum. And it takes a look at how even Native Americans, they judge them on what percentage they believe is Native American or Indian blood.
That's what I wanted to get to. When the Trail of Tears went down and those Indians landed in Oklahoma, the Caucasian came up with the Dawes roll.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Can you explain what the Dawes roll is?
Well, there was several rolls. The Dawes roll was the one that was most respected and created from from a politician or right here in Massachusetts. And it was an opportunity for them to try to capture the Native Americans, their names, their parents, and then try to figure out what percentage of Indianness they were. And there's certainly a mathematical formula to do that. There's charts to do that. And the thing of it is this provided them with an opportunity to filter out people that they didn't want to be responsible for in terms of lands that had been stolen.
Oh, so this is about money.
Right.
Always is,
Cash
unfortunately.
Rules. Cash rules.
So how did it go down? They would look at me and say, "Oh, he's too brown. He might have a nose, but this one right here, Marsha, she got the hair, so we're gonna let her be an Indian, but we're gonna say he's just a Negro, and whatever land his people had, we're gonna take that."
That's pretty much how it went. And the people that were doing the interviews were illiterate by any standards. And a lot of them got those positions to be census takers, to be interviewers, simply through political means or family relationships.
So now I gotta stop you and
political power.
I gotta fast forward you. So tell me about the $5 Indian.
The $5 Indian. You would have to tell me about that. Just
These
in terms,
are
I know.
These are people that paid $5. My understanding is these were Caucasian people who paid $5 to be included on the DARS roll.
I can see I can see where you're exactly for land, for opportunities. But it was kind of a dual-edged sword because the Native Americans were told, well, you have to kind of reculture yourself to blend in with the majority. And so you
got to be a Christian now.
They changed names, they changed religions. They did a lot of things to be more what was considered Americanized. And then as soon as that was done, and then they turned around and said, now you have to prove that you're an Indian so that you can get land. And it was like, well, I've erased all of my history. I've changed my name. I've joined into your society and your culture. Now you're telling me in order to get any type of land or recreation of any type, I have to prove that I'm Indian.
And I was here before y'all.
When I've just spent a couple generations proving I wasn't an Indian. And so it's almost a no-win situation. And I know I've got an enrollment card. It showed a Cherokee, a state recognized tribe in Alabama. I've got a card. But a lot of people, that's even difficult because of, during the Civil War, records being burned up in courthouses, as well as people changing their names to Thomas Jefferson and other names that wouldn't make them appear to be a Native American, and just the destruction and the genocide of any trace of their ancestry.
So in doing your research, that word really gives me goosebumps, genocide.
Yes.
And the genocide of a culture, a people, a whole civilization. How do we reconcile that in modern times?
That's a very good question. And each generation takes that on when people intentionally and purposely try to eliminate a race, an ethnicity, a nationality of people. And I think right now there's certainly some steps, if she's approved, Deborah Haaland, that is going to, attempt to be approved in terms of being over the interior on Biden's cabinet as Native American woman, because it is the Department of the Interior that holds in trust all of this land, trillions and trillions of
Trillions.
dollars of land and resource and minerals and precious gems and oil and gold and everything that was a part of the Native American resources.
Mhm.
And so I think there is a possibility now, as well as respect, to not run pipelines through Native American burial grounds and sacred
Mhm.
land and
Like they
things
don't even
like
think
that.
about that. They have no respect.
No. But will a cash payout ever occur? I
No,
certainly doubt it.
no.
Uh, but hopefully each generation moves us a step further along in recognition.
In looking at all of the research that you've done and your books that you've written, what else is there for you to do the next phase? Because you do not look like you're ready to sit down and retire. That I don't get that from you. What's the next part of this journey for you?
The next part of my journey is to share what I've learned with others and to help them discover their Native American or their Black Red roots. And, I went as far as having my birth certificate amended. And so it's things like that that I can share with people, how to look through a census report and what to look for. Some census reports, you'll find a relative that at one point they were white. Then on the next census report, 10 years later, now they're Black.
Hmm.
And you find very few that are designated as Indian, because if they were, why are you not on a reservation? And so I want to share my experiences and the knowledge I've gained through research with others so that they could move forward and fully flesh out their ancestry if that's a desire.
Mm-hmm.
I find that a lot of people of African American ancestry have heard those family stories and they're curious about it, but don't go that next step. And I'd like to help them go that next step. I teach a class on Native American arts and societies, Native American cultures and societies, and I would like to share that. Find out where your family ancestry originated in, as far as you know, in the United States. What Native nations were in that area, what tribes were in that area, what languages, Native languages were in that area, and just start there and then start checking the census records from those areas to find your relatives and move from there. Some people don't know that process of how you find your Black Red roots, how you find your Native roots.
Where is this class being held that you have?
Oh, I'm teaching the class. My first cohort of students will begin on March 3rd.
Oh, that's my birthday.
Well,
where is this class
happy birthday.
Thank you. Where is this class being held?
Well, because everything is online now, it will certainly be a Zoom class. And I will take the class, the cohort of students, through getting an understanding of Native American history from a Native American perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I've taught it from a Native American perspective and have been asked to colonize it because it was scaring students when the students weren't, of certain ethnicities.
That's called cognitive dissonance, right?
Right. It just disturbs you. It's just so disturbing because you can't reconcile or come to a stable balance.
That we've been lied to all of these years.
Ooh, stable balance. A stable balance. Now, what university are you with?
I'm not at liberty to say.
Okay, that's fine. So I'm like looking at why don't we have you do a series of documentaries?
Oh, I would certainly be open to that because I think people need to know. And, you can be curious as much as you want, but until you move forward to find out the truth, you'll just be curious and you won't be able to pass that rich legacy down to the generations.
Two questions. When how far back does the census go? And number two, how many tribes had Black Indians? Or
Uh,
what tribes had Black Indians?
well, the census go back into, I think the earliest was in the 1700s. Most of my research in terms of ancestors that I could identify went back to the 1800s. And that's another point. Thank you for bringing that up, that I wanted to make sure I stated that after you do a DNA test, it will identify to you others that share your DNA, and you will be surprised. After my DNA was shared with others, and that's your privilege, whether or not you want to do that. I had people that were Caucasian that contacted me and said, "How did you get in our family line? We've got to figure this out." And actually,
To which you replied is, "Where is my damn check?"
no, no, and actually traveled to Alabama to research it for themselves. I've been to Alabama and researched it also, but I traveled back to find that. And so it certainly opens up your eyes in terms of, your ancestry, and how very few of us are just one single ancestry, and we need to embrace all of it.
Yes, we
Okay,
do.
so as you mentioned, Southeast, is it safe to presume that Black Indians were primarily in the Southeast where it was warm?
That's where it's believed, but it depends on how you define Indians, because there were certainly Indians that came out of Mexico, the plains. And so our attachment generally is in the Southeast.
But
I thought it was.
there's a museum in Wisconsin that has Black Indians featured.
Yes, I certainly would think that would be true. And, if you look at what is considered the Native American founding fathers, you've got Chief Joseph, you've got Red Cloud, you've got Sitting Bull, you've got Geronimo, and you'll see a lot of pictorials where they'll have Mount Rushmore, and they'll have George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Theodore Roosevelt, and Abraham Lincoln. And superimposed right under them will be the Native American founding fathers. And all of them weren't strictly in the Southeast, but we're generally connected with the Southeast because that's where some of the largest slave ports were.
So I'm wondering, though, if
But
we were
we didn't
to
get an
look
answer
at,
to the question of what tribes Black people are in.
They're in all of them.
Okay.
Yes.
you're in all of them.
Yes.
And so when we look at the people in Mexico,
Okay.
there's so many Mexicans that look like a lot of Native Americans. How did that channel move?
I'd say
people.
There's various different ethnotypes, and when you kind of look at patterns of features and things of that nature, we'd say from what we know, Native Americans have a certain colorization, certain features, and things of that nature. But as a Manitoka leader told me, and that's the portion of the Cherokee that is their education wing, the Manitoka. He told me Native Americans are the color of the soil. They are every color possible, deep brown to light yellow colors. They're the color of the soil. And so when we talk about migration patterns, North America, South America, where do the Indians come from? They came from everywhere.
Are you familiar with the Califians?
No, I'm not.
My research is pointing me to the Califians, as in California, as in the root word caliph. And they said that California was named after this African goddess, Califia. But if you Google, particularly on Pinterest, the Califians, one famous picture is of maybe 20 black Indian girls with ponytails that are very long, the Califians. And so it just opens my mind up to what was happening out there in California. Of course, they have access to Asia. They have the Pacific
on a coast.
And we know as we go towards from California going west, we know that you have a bunch of islands there. So as the African came out of Africa, Southern Africa, and migrated to Australia, to Asia. Long story short, did you know the first king of Hawaii was a black man? King Kamehameha.
No, but I thank you for bringing that information to me.
We were all over the world.
And I have no doubt of that. And all of this has been hidden from us.
Yes, on purpose.
Right.
People don't want you to know who you are.
Exactly. And that's why I tell people, even though, you think that something negative may result from it, you still need to investigate it for the generations to come, that they would know. Because that's one of the biggest atrocities that have been waged against African Americans, the loss of identity, the loss of language, the loss of familial relationships, and the losses go on and on. And now where there's an opportunity in this digital age to get information just from your laptop or your computer, or even your cell phone, now is the opportunity to find out.
That's huge. This is very important. Thank you.
What do children say?
Well, children are they haven't taken in a lot of stereotypes yet, and so they're more welcoming of a thought that they could be Native American. My grandson, in the Native American culture, you have your U.S. government name, which mine is Esther Pearson. You have your Native American name. Mine is Cherokee Cloud Chalaji Uliji Lee. And then I have a spirit name. And I don't tell anyone my spirit name, but my husband and my daughter know my spirit name, because it's the belief that people could harm you if they knew your spirit name. And those are all the things that I cover in this class. How did I become Cherokee Cloud? How is a Native American name taken on? And how is a spirit name taken on? I traveled to Arkansas and met with the Manitoka leader. He had me create something with my hands so that my spirit would be in it, my creativity would be in it, mail it to him. He went on a spiritual journey, and my spirit name came to him in that journey. And then I went to a ceremony in which I was given that name, given a medicine bag. The medicine bag had turquoise, which is precious, and it had bear root. If I ever got sick, I should chew on this bear root, and it had a feather. And the feather was put in it afterwards, because during the ceremony, with the beating of drums, an eagle joined in with us overhead and circled around, and a feather dropped down from that eagle. And so that was a symbol or a sign. Exactly. And so that feather went into my medicine bag.
Have you ever been to a sweat?
I haven't been to a sweat, but I've done sages and things of that nature.
Did you smoke the peace pipe?
No. I could have smoked tobacco, but I don't. Tobacco is sacred, as well as sage and a number of other different leaf type.
See, all this time, Doc, I thought they were smoking weed in that pipe.
Only you.
Well, maybe
that's what's in your pipe. It ain't everybody else's pipe, though.
Maybe
everybody else got the pipe with the.
Where there are some natives that, according to their religion, they smoke mushrooms, they take peyote, they smoke marijuana. That's part of their religion. and they've been approved to do that without any type of criminal recompense coming back to them about it.
Little did I know back in the 60s that this was a religious thing that I was doing.
Oh, yes.
There you go.
Yeah, 1960.
I didn't know that's what I was. Well, thank you for that clarity.
1960. Okay.
60s.
Doctor, how can people support you, get in touch with you, your contact information? And thank you so much for, once again, opening our eyes and our viewers' eyes to the possibilities and to look beyond what we think we see and to use what our teachers taught us in school, the thinking cap for critical thinking.
Yes. There's, as you mentioned, the critical thinking, and you mentioned cognitive dissonance, and a lot of us are stuck in there. And when you look at the levels of thought, knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and then evaluation, interpretation, judgment, we have to go through those steps.
Yep.
Of research. Most people just get stuck there in the fact levels where someone else is giving you the facts and you're just taking them in. No, but to get back to your question, you can certainly contact me through my email if you want to talk to me, if you want to join into the class and things of that nature. And I do believe a press release that went out and included that information.
Well, that's on BlackUSA.News. But for people listening, you want to put it out there?
Yes. Oh, certainly. Dr. E.M. DREMPEARSON @gmail.com.
And you got to teach us a couple of words before you go. Number one, Great Spirit. Is that God?
Well, every, I'd say, ethnicity and nationality have a representation of the great creator. For me, as a born again Christian, that would be, the tripart God, God the Father, God the Son, Jesus Christ, and God the Holy Spirit. In the Native American thought, they would just say the great creator.
And what do we call America?
What do we call America? So many things.
Turtle Island.
Turtle Island, exactly. It was balanced on the back of a turtle. That's the thought. But to get back to your question, just in terms of getting in contact with me, I hope people will. In this day and age, people want to be woke, whatever that means to you.
Right.
And part of that is you identifying yourself rather than taking on an identification that someone else has given you that in many instances is harmful.
Good deal. Well, Dr. Pearson, we want to thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
for
you.
Opening our eyes.
Thank you.
We have your contact information in our notes. And June Perry, Annie Havas from Hungary, Alfred Isaacs from Jamaica, Maury States from West Baltimore. They plan to send you some contact information. But thank you again for joining us.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much. This is wonderful.
It's been my pleasure and my honor to talk with you both today. And thank you so much.
Yes,
thank you, ma'am.
Okay, Marcia, you're not done yet. We got to put you back to work. Now, this lady, I fumbled an interview earlier this week. Marcia, we have a celebrity with us. Yes, this is Judge Leonia Lloyd. You don't know about her?
Hi, Judge Lloyd.
Hi, how are you? I'm fine.
Good.
Now, Judge, you're famous, right?
I didn't hear you.
You're famous, right?
I don't call it that, but a little tiny bit people may know me.
You're from Detroit?
Correct. I'm from Detroit, Michigan, Motor City.
Oh, snap. Marcia, you've lived a bunch of places. You ever live in Detroit?
Yes.
Damn.
Oh, okay.
McNichols and 6 Mile?
Correct. McNichols and 6 Mile.
I think it was Strathmore Street or something.
I know Strathmore.
Hmm.
I know Strathmore. When did you leave Detroit?
Oh, girl, a long time ago. My daughter Sandy was probably 1 or 2.
Was
So
that when
we
you got in the fight with the Klan, Marsha?
boy, shut up. So this was my ex-husband was working for Wyandotte Chemicals, and so we lived in Detroit. And first he went up there for Gulf Oil, and then Wyandotte.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I was young then, and a mother, so new mother relatively.
Okay.
So I didn't do much in Detroit. Although when I was younger, we used to party in Detroit. I'm from South Bend originally.
Okay. Okay. All
Mhm.
right. All right.
But
Well,
Detroit's a big place. So what's going on up in Detroit, Judge?
well, the pandemic has everybody on lockdown.
Mm.
I mean,
Mhm.
it's not. It's and I know everybody. All my friends are biting at the bit to get out and just meet you to go to lunch. And I come out with a book right at the time of the pandemic. And so people are like, but I want you to sign my book. I've had people mail me their books and I've signed them and mailed them back. But those
Did you wear your
plans,
gloves when you opened it up?
oh, you don't even want to know the rituals I go
Girl,
through.
come on, come on. Let's hear it because I got one over here too, for real. You get the
I have a
bleach
lamp.
water?
I have a UVC lamp. And so
I
when
love
stuff
it.
comes in, everything goes in that area where the UVC lamp is. And then I open stuff. And then
Hold up, Marsha. You got a lamp too?
I don't have a lamp, but I'm gonna have one after this conversation. I have buckets of water, bleach water, at the front door and at the back door. So whenever you get ready to come in here, when you got something that don't belong in here, it's got to be watered down, and we don't care what it is, or it'll stay in a little package until we figure it just dissolves. But I'm gonna get a UVA light or whatever you call it,
Plus,
get
Judge,
UVC
also
light.
get the
Judge,
spray gun.
she
Get
got
the
some
spray
holy water. Yeah, she got holy
holy.
water.
Well, if she gets that spray gun, it has alcohol and
Oh,
water
we have that.
solution.
Oh, we have all that.
Okay,
It's
but
on
it
the
has a light. It has a light too. It
that
has a
goes with
UVC
it.
light. Yeah,
Okay.
so whatever you're aiming it at, it's gonna coat it with an alcohol mist spray, and it's gonna do the light thing
Does
too.
it have a special name to it or something that you sound like a little package of stuff?
I got it on Amazon. I got it on Amazon.
There you
And
go.
if you look up disinfecting spray guns, something like that, you'll see all these pictures, and you'll see it has a bottle connected to it. And because if you take it off and fill it back up and put it back on, and you squeeze that thing, the blue light shoots out along with the liquid. So
I love it. Okay, so we're gonna get that today. And Amazon's over here all the time. We love Amazon. I need to go buy some stock. So tell us about your book.
Your
oh, my
honor,
book,
your honor. That's the name of it.
I
that's
love
true.
it.
Your honor, your honor. And this is I don't know if you can see it.
Yes.
Okay. This is a book about my sister and I and our lives, and, and up until the part where she passed, and then what I did to continue going on.
Your twin
Um,
sister.
I didn't hear you.
Your twin sister.
My twin sister, right?
Mm.
And we were known very much in Detroit. Okay, still to this very day. Okay, we were the Twins for Justice, and before that, we
Mm.
were Lloyd and Lloyd because we were a law firm. And we did that for 10 years. Before that, we were teachers, and we were in different schools. But my sister, I was a drama teacher, so she came after school and she would help co-produce and co-direct plays that I was putting on. So we were very close, needless to say. Before that we were out of high school, we were models. So our lives were intertwined. They were very much intertwined. And then we came back, we wanted to speak to these kids at their graduation. My sister insisted in 85-degree weather that we wear our robes. Uh, and I said, with the whole regalia, and I said, we're going to suffocate. And she said, Leonia, it means something to young kids in the 8th grade. She said, if they can see us, then they can see it in themselves.
Mhm.
And she said, So, and you know, I could not argue with that. And I said, fine, fine. So we got there, and it was sweltering, but we were there. And as soon as we walked out with the robes on in the pavilion, you could hear these kids ooh and ah, and you know, they stood and they were clapping. And my sister said, "I told you." And it was the impression she wanted to give them, because this was the next generation going on.
Yeah.
And many times we'd be out at a store or something like that. People would come up to us and say, I didn't think I'd ever see you in person. And they said, "This is my child. Shake her hand. This is a judge. Shake her hand." And the thing, had never seen a judge live, up front, in person. You can touch it. Okay. And that meant something to us, that people need to see so they can understand you can be. You can be anything you
Yes,
want to be.
that's right.
Okay. And you just have to set your mind to it. So that whole mindset I had as a teacher, so did she. And to mold the minds of young people in high school. And then I wanted to do the same thing in law. And we branched out into entertainment law, picking young people who wanted to get out there. And one of our clients was Mojo. And he said, he was a DJ here in Detroit. And he said, well, before you two decide to, to put all this money into an artist, he said, let me hear it first. And the reason we respected what he would say is because he was one of the first DJs around the country playing Prince. He liked Prince. He could hear something in it, the time, etc. He had the ability to play whatever he wanted. And so he broke that, and Prince knew here in Michigan, his music was having a breakout way far more than anywhere else. Okay, so when he told us that, we said, fine. So we were letting him hear stuff. He says, no, it's good, but no. And then he called us and he said, look, I got a group and they just came to me. I can't do anything for them. He said, but I referred them to you. And we said, okay. They came to be known as Ready for the World. And their big hit that knocked Prince's Purple Rain down was Oh Sheila. And we worked with them, and they were turned down by everybody. And I want people to understand that you're going to get knocked down. You're going to get knocked down. You're going to have disappointments. You're going to have failures. You don't stop. You don't just, throw in the towel. We sent out to a million companies. Some companies wouldn't even open the box. They just sent it back. Okay. And the group would sit around us and look, and they were kind of depressed. They were young boys though, coming out of high school. And we said, look, we're going to put the record out. We believe in you. Mojo believes in you. So we believe in him. And we're going to put it out. He said it's a hit. I don't care what they say. We put it out. It blew up. It blew up, and no radio station would play it except one. And it was simulcast on a dance show. So you could, if you were driving in your car at 5 o'clock, you'd hear this one song one time. Okay. And it just skyrocketed. Kids were calling stations that had threw away the product because, they get the product from the promoters,
Right.
threw it away, had to go buy the record. Okay. So, and that's how they came to be. We negotiated a big deal because we saw that no one was going to come to us with a record deal. They weren't discovered yet, and Motown was gone. And there was a big void here. Okay. So with them, with our exposure in Ebony magazine, we were flooded with tapes. We had bags, big garbage bags full of tapes in the mailroom.
After that, everybody wanted you.
Right.
Exactly. Even when we stopped doing that and I became a judge, I would get flowers. I get roses with tapes attached to it.
They said we're gonna get you one way or the other.
And I said, I can't do entertainment law anymore because I'm on the bench. Thank you, but I will pass your tape on, but don't send any more because I can't do anything. But I had my gold records on my walls in my chambers. And I had a nickname. I was the rock and roll judge. So, I came in like that. And then after I got elected, and again, in the book, I show people, people will tell you this can't happen. I ran against 10 incumbents and to reach two other challengers. So I said, I was just determined, and I felt that because I knew what I wanted to do, I wanted to use the bench to help defendants. I wanted them to change their lives. And this gave me a position of power to do it. That was in my heart. And when people told me, are you crazy? Are you crazy? Do you think, they said, people don't win against one incumbent, let alone 10. They said, and I said, well, I said, I have faith in me. Right. And I won. I unsat somebody. And I convinced my sister 2 years later. I said, I need someone on the bench who thinks like me. I said, I need someone else on my team. I knew that the kind of sentencing I was doing was different. Well within the judicial ethics. That's right. Fine. But it's taking time. The way it was going is that once a ticket is done, they're gone. I don't want to see them anymore. I'm not going to crowd my docket. Well, I was the opposite. Okay, I was the opposite. I want you to come back. I'm signing you to come back. I'm going to watch you. I have you on probation. I have these people in place to help you. This is a place where you come in. My sister, I trained her on the bench because you have to be trained by the other judges. You have to sit with them. And she started sitting with me way before it was time to come in and sit.
All right.
And so she said, and she was watching. Exactly. And she said, you have like an empowerment zone. People come in one way, but they go out your door a different way and improved. And she said, that's what I want to do. I said, I know. That's why I wanted you here. And it's funny. I mean, we call it restorative justice because, again, when my sister, for example, had a young man who decided to take some magic marker stuff, just mark up this lady's white fence. It was a lady up in age. She paid to get this fence done, all the time. She prided herself in this white picket fence. Leona got very upset. And she said, the lady was in the courtroom and she told the boy, she said, listen to what this fence means to her. And so the lady started explaining, and the boy, you could see him feeling really, really bad. This is not a game. It's not funny. And Leona said, now you are going to buy a can of white paint and you're going to go back over there and you're going to paint that fence. And you're going to come back and you're going to take pictures of it and you're going to show me. And they had to come back. The boy had done the fence and the lady was smiling. She said, he's a very nice young man. And Leona said, yeah, but now a part of your probation is a GED program. She said, you have to get your life together. And again, this was what this was all about.
Right.
Using a sentencing tool to help elevate. Now, that doesn't mean you don't pay your debt to society. You're going to pay your debt to society. Right. But at the same token, if you take people who could possibly be coming back in front of you again, and you help them see that they can transform their lives, they won't be back in front of you. So
but how do you take that though, Leonia? This is real serious. And first of all, I congratulate you and I honor you and your sister for that restorative work. But this is not just something that needs to be in your courtroom in Detroit. And I hope with your book that could be something that when you go to your National Bar Association, the American Bar Association, or whatever the judges go to, that this becomes a mandate in our penals, in our justice system. These young people, many of whom are just acting out, and that one little thing puts them on track that is nothing but negative for the rest of their lives.
Correct. I learned a long time ago that I had a voice on that bench, and it was a powerful voice. You can either uplift people or you can make them feel extremely bad. And the one thing, even with young people, and I said, look, this particular case can go away. what I need, I said, well, what is your grade point average? Well, I got about like a C minus or a D. I said, I said, well, that's like a 1.5. I said, what if you really applied yourself? What kind of grades would you get? And they said, I could get a 3. I said, I'm holding you to that. And I said, no miss classes. I said, unless approved by your mother. And the lady would be standing there with the father. And then the boy would listen. I said, when is the card marking? Next one, I get it. I said, fine. Week after that, you're coming in with your card. And time after time after time, grades shot up. Grades went past what they said they could do. And I remember this one lady, and her son's grades were so good. I said, well, he's done everything I asked him to do. I'm ready to dismiss his case. I said, erase it like it never happened. I want him to continue this road. I don't want a legal situation messing up this for him. And so the mother said, hold up, Judge. She said, this young man has never gotten a card like this in his entire life. And she said, can you keep him? And I said, I can keep him up to 2 years. And then I have to let him go. And so she said, well, that's fine. Just don't let him go now. I said, fine. I said, come back when your card is. And the boy looked at me. He said, see you next time for the card mark. The point is, he smiled. He walked out and he said, bye, Judge. And he waved. Now,
love.
It's the communication that a person of authority has said and recognized the greatness in you. You have it. You just don't act like it. You have it, but I'm going to show you. You got it. And then when you pull it out, you're going to surprise yourself. And Brookwood, I saw transformation after transformation. I saw people turn into what they were supposed to be.
Right.
And I had them for 2 years.
Right.
And I watched these. I mean, a lot of judges will never get an experience like that. But I saw divine intervention in my courtroom. And I watched them come in. I used to send the teams of the police out there. They would bring them back at 2 or 3 in the morning. Some of them with hypodermic needles in their pockets. So you got to understand, when they blossom into beautiful flowers, they go get a master's degree, bachelor's degree, become counselors, become nurses, practical, registered. I'm telling you, I'm just so proud of them, because I said, God doesn't make junk.
Tell me a thank you. I know you had somebody come up to you out the clear blue, caught you off guard, and said thank you. I know you did.
Yes.
Tell me about one of them.
All the time, when they're in there and they get to a point, for example, that they know they've turned the corner. They know they have made the change. Not just stopping the drugs, but they have put in the work, and they see the change. And they come in, it's like, I've got to tell you. One mother looked at me and she said, you know what, Judge? She said, I didn't want to do this program. She said, and then you kept talking to me. And she said, and she was alcoholic, and she had a little 12-year-old girl sitting in the back. And she said, but I'm going to do this. And she snatched her wig off. And she said, this is the day I start changing. Okay, fast forward several months. She comes in, and the little girl's still in the back, and they're smiling because they had to report every month. She said, Judge, I'm so glad I did this program. She said, I don't even know how to thank you. She said, because my little girl looked at me. I was getting ready to take her to the mall, and she said, Mama, she said, I've always loved you. I have to love you because you're my mother, but I didn't like you. She said, now I like you, and I love being around you. And the lady just broke down and cried in the courtroom. She said, thank you. Thank you. So, yes, I've gotten a million thank yous. And I tell them, I said, I didn't do anything. You did this.
You did
I said, you did this. I'm just your cheerleader. I'm your cheer team. I said, you did this.
Judge, Black people make up 13% of this country's population. Yet Black men make up 34% of the prisons. Black women are the fastest growing demographic. On top of that, Judge, America has 5% of the world's population, but we have 25% of the world's inmates. The only other the country that is the United Kingdom.
Mm.
How do we get more judges like you?
Well, I'm hoping, that when I first started doing this and I went to the national conferences and drug courts, and I finally saw tons of judges who were there that were drug court judges that thought like me. And I felt I was in heaven because they thought like me, they didn't want to rush stuff out and I don't care, don't want this drug cases that deal with drugs because it's difficult, it's hard, but it's worth it when you take it in. And these judges thought like me. And the thing is that and they asked me to go speak at and train. It's a training session for new judges, and it was about the alternative justice program.
Right.
And I went and I spoke and I looked at them. I said, "You have been on the bench now," I said, "doing your job for a few months. How many of you had one defendant come up," I said, "and say thank you?" I said, "Raise your hand." And they looked at me. I said, "And you know what? You can sit there another 20 years and you're going to that it'll be the same thing." I said, "You have to look at things differently."
Right.
And
Look at them as people.
Pardon me?
Look at them as people.
Absolutely.
Look at them as human beings. And so if you don't see anything but a dirty black man or a dirty black woman, that's in your head, that's in your psyche. You don't see that individual. You don't see their heart. You don't hear their brain. You don't hear their lips. You don't see them as humans.
Right. And unfortunately, that's why it matters who you elect. It matters who you put on that bench.
Yep.
Because when I looked at people, you're the summation of what your experiences are. And I used to say that when I campaigned. And the thing is that when you walked up there, I said, it could be your daughter. It could be your son. It could be you. I said, you want someone to hear you. Even with defendants that used to say, "I'm going to plead guilty," they've watched me for a while. First, they had came in and said, "I want a trial." Okay, cool. You can have a trial. And then they watch you, and they watch what happens with defendants that come up. And they saw a judge talking to the defendant.
Right. Like a human being.
Exactly. And explaining to them what it was they did that was considered wrong, but giving them a different type of sentence that wasn't so punitive that they walked out of there with their head spinning, or a fine that was so high they didn't understand with car notes and house notes. How am I going to pay a fine for this ticket because I was out there being loud and now I got to pay $500?
Okay, Judge, I want to put America on trial right now. I'm a journalist, but I'm playing a lawyer.
Okay. Go ahead, Dan.
Here's a scenario.
Okay.
In terms of science and medicine, this country, and I'm a big fan of Judge Judy for one reason. She said, if you lie, I can't believe anything else that you say after that. Okay. Tuskegee experiment. Evidence number 1. North Carolina sterilization of black women. Piece of evidence number 2. Henrietta Lacks and the theft of the HeLa cells now worth billions. Piece of evidence number 3. And let's stick with that. So now the U.S. goes and gets T.D. Jakes just yesterday to tell me, a black man, to take this vaccine on behalf of the American government. But the thing is, Judge, the American government has lied repeatedly to black people. And like Judge Judy says, once you lie once, I can't believe anything else you say.
Correct.
So as a black media person, Marcia and I will eventually be presented with the option to get out there and say, black people, you too should take the vaccine. But we're not going to do that because we don't think we have the right to use our platform to tell you what to do or what not to do. We will only tell you to think for yourself.
Right, right, right.
This is the case we present to you, Judge.
That's an interesting case because I'm supposed to get a shot tomorrow. Okay, so, but put that aside. It took a long time for me to make that decision for the reasons that you just stated. And it doesn't mean that I'm not apprehensive about that. I had to talk to 3 doctors that I have before they had to convince me to do this. And I've had these doctors for years, right? So, it didn't come easy because, like Judge Judy said, if you lie to me once, I know you're going to lie to me again. Okay, I am a proponent of that. And I was like that on the bench. I said, just give it to me straight. I can deal with the truth. I can't deal with a lie. I said, because if you lie, I said, just know whatever's coming is going to be worse. Hey, everybody would tell them that. Don't lie to her. Don't lie to her because she will get you. So the point is that when you see stuff like that, and I studied that in law school too, and in other situations that Blacks were used as well for sterilization situations with women, etc. Okay, and how unfair that was. But you took a population of people and incarcerated people that happened to be the majority Black, and you messed them up for the rest of their lives. So this was a very, you're looking at this shot, yes, and then it came down to, is it safe enough to take? I don't know if it will absolutely prevent something, and how long will it be, because no one has shown us what that effect will be. I have been watching some of my friends, and when they took it, watched how they came out of it, etc. That's what I use as my barometer, okay? And to see how my friends were coming out, and thank God all of them were fine. But that is what I believe, what my eyes could see. Okay, not everything that you see on television, in terms of what all these people are supposed to be doing and getting and all of this. I watch people I knew, and to make up a decision as to, because right now, just like as we talked earlier, I got all my spray guns, my my lights. I got a whole arsenal of stuff. And it's because we haven't been hit like this before. And because I have a low immune system, one doctor said, look, you got to protect yourself. And what are you doing? And how are you doing this and that? They wanted to know my whole regimen. And after I told them, my little bubble that I'm in, they said, okay, you're doing the right thing. So, but when I got to my heart specialist, because remember, my sister died from a heart problem. And I don't have it, but I've had a heart specialist ever since she died. Okay, and then I was sent by my internist. So I've had this doctor for almost 20 years, and he ran me through the ringer. He wanted to know everything I was doing to make sure nothing would happen to me. And then I told him, and he said, fine. He said, because let me make something clear to you. You have a low immune system, a very low immune system, and you would be on that list. You will die. You will die if you catch this. There's no question in my mind. So he was like, I want you to take the vaccine. He took it. He had taken it already. He had taken it. And he was trying to get one at that time for his wife. He said he hadn't been able to get her one. He's trying to get her one. But I said, well, after I sent my prayers up and whatnot, I said, if I'm to have it, eventually I'll be contacted. I'm not going to go to great pains out here to try. I'm not, going to be trying to pull any strings of any kind. I'm just going to sit back. If I'm supposed to do this, it will come to me. I said so, and it did. I got it almost within the same 2-week period. These notices came from 2 different entities. But again, I waited because I watched my friends, my cousins, people I knew before. Okay, I can't trust the government. I watched, was it Pence supposed to get a shot? And I looked and I said, now I played it back. I said, Dan, I said, look, did you see a shot going down? I said, that's the fastest shot I've ever seen. Doo! I said, shots don't go in like that. I had shingles vaccination because I had shingles 4 times. So after 3 years of telling me to go get the vaccination, I finally did that. You see, I didn't move too fast doing it, and I had shingles. So, but again, with a low immune system, I was susceptible to it, so I got it, and it's not pleasant to have. It isn't pleasant to have. So I went and got the shingle shot, and luckily I waited because the shot changed into a one that did not lower your immune system. The older shot did. So if you already got a low immune system, you definitely don't want something that's going to lower it even more.
Right.
That shock, I mean, that shot I had, I went through some changes with the shot, not a lot, but it lets you know the flu. I got that. I got that for 20 years. I didn't go through too much of anything except on the early stages, in the very beginning, maybe 20 years ago, maybe a little longer than that. They were using those live cells. And so I would catch a cold. My sister would catch a cold. And I said, this is not in our head. I said, we both sitting up here sick for
Right.
2 days.
Right.
And I did that for about four years, and I stopped. Okay. Once I became a judge, and I caught the flu twice, so that was not a great experience either. That you feel like every bone is going to, you feel every ache.
Girl, you're going to have to just pray on it for real.
Right,
You're going to have to pray on it for real and stay prayed up through that whole process. And I think
Right.
that, I think everybody has to make their own decision about what is best for them and their family.
Right.
And, nobody knows the outcome. Nobody knows the outcome when you go to just get your normal flu shot, for real.
Right.
The only thing I have concerns about is that it just appeared so quickly, and I don't know how many clinical trials and all that they even had an opportunity to go through. This is some stuff sitting on a shelf somewhere that somebody said, well, let's pull that out. It's got the basic root issues on it, and maybe we can make it do whatever. So I have some concerns, and I think everybody has to make their own decision. And they have to literally look inside themselves, do their research, whatever they need to do to be comfortable with making that decision. And it can only be your decision. I'm not following somebody because somebody else is doing it. I'm going to do what I need to do based on me and my prayers. So,
right.
Judge, we just got breaking news.
Breaking news.
Breaking news. First of all, a special thank you to Pam Perry, PR. She is my new best friend. But we just got breaking news from Washington. Judge, you're being called to sit on the case of Donald Trump. Would you sit on the case and judge him for crimes against humanity?
Oh, that's cute.
You're not supposed to be biased.
That's number one.
You sit on the trial because it's ooh-wee.
Okay. Here's an easier question.
Okay.
What am I to think when half of this country voted for that man?
Well, I was concerned about it. I was concerned about it because that meant they were buying everything he was saying.
Yeah.
And so much of what he was saying were lies. And if you buy it and then you keep you keep rolling with this and you keep rolling with it. I mean, from day one, not even from day one, from campaign time were lies. And then when he got inaugurated, to put the two, Obama's inauguration side by side, and said mine was the biggest ever. And you see as clear as night and day, no, it wasn't. And everybody's laughing at this on TV. The news people are laughing because it's done in real time. I mean, why would you? That to me was a sign. If you're gonna lie about something, that's simple. I mean, just say you had a wonderful day, okay? But it's not. What does this mean? I mean, and then I saw the hatred later on, and the obsession with Obama and what he's done, etc. You're not going to erase 8 years of that man sitting in office, no matter what you do, no matter how much you hate him. That's not going to ever happen. And you can try to erase everything that he did, okay, but that's not going to be possible. But then when people see what's really happening, the people that were on the fence and wanted something new, wanted something different, and tried to ignore maybe some of the stuff that he was saying, uh, he showed who he
Yeah.
really was.
But
He
he's been
showed
doing that in New York all along. I mean, people in New Yorkers can't stand him. And, he was putting children in bankruptcy with his little Trump University. And that started, it just snowballed with all of the stuff. I mean, they actually imploded the Trump Tower in, New Jersey. And literally, just a couple of days ago, they imploded it.
I saw
And
that. Yeah, I saw
right,
that.
because he's a joke. He's a liar. He's been able to live off of his parents' money, and he's not really done anything that has any sustainability from the time he's been doing that. I mean, look at what he's done. He created an insurrection on the United States government. He should be tried for treason and murder one for the 5 people who were murdered during that time.
But also in Michigan, he tried to snatch your governor.
Right. That was when I saw that, I thought, what world are we living in?
Mm-hmm.
This lady had to be taken out of there. I said, and you say, good, these are patriots. And I'm watching these people with the long rifles and stuff and all the regalia of war at the
Right.
at our capital.
Right.
And I'm
Right.
like, wait,
Right.
if we don't have any laws saying don't bring guns in there, we gotta come up with something, because this is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And one black legislator had some members, I believe they were of the Black Panther Party, walk her in.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, we're going to protect her. And since you can't arrest us for having the weapons, because look over here.
Right.
And they went in and they said, we're ready. And the thing is that the kind of place you want people to be living in, where everybody is afraid to walk outside of their door because of what? Because you turn around and you believe stuff that's not even true.
While
Okay,
he
the
sits in a
atmosphere
tent,
change.
while he
Pardon?
sits in a tent having a party with all of his folks,
Right.
looking at the insurrection on television in the
Right.
tent as they
Right.
party. He and
I
his
thought,
sons and his daughters and all of his cohorts.
right. I thought that was horrible. I mean, I watched these people storm the White House, and I was like, they're not. I remember I was in Washington a few years ago to visit my cousin. You couldn't go nowhere near the White House, okay? And years before that, I went up there with my drug court folks, okay, because we had a conference, and we were allowed to walk up, up there at that time. But 4 or 5 years later, no, you couldn't even walk up where I had walked before. How are they getting all the way up there to the door when you have your president said, I will walk with you. I will be with you. We're going to walk, and then you're going to tell them where they're to go. And what I really want to know, why was security not reacting like they should?
National Guard did not even respond, and did not respond to the governor of Maryland. The National Guard was told to stand down. So where there normally would be the National Guard taking a lead, they were not to be found, either from the Virginia governor, from this Maryland governor, and they didn't listen to the mayor of DC.
I have a problem when you have peaceful protesters at the Black Lives Matter walks. If you got your agitators that are not part of that walk, but you are treating them all the same, and you are spraying them and doing all kinds of things to them. Nobody did anything to these people coming with weapons, and whether you're using the poles as weapons and the regalia you had on. The Black Lives Matter people weren't walking with helmets on.
That's right.
Okay, these people came prepared.
That's right, and they scaled walls. They scaled walls like they were military militia people that were involved. They're doing what normal military people do.
Right.
No. Normal people would have taken the steps.
Right. Like you said, they were, you know, that watching them crawl up there like little salamanders and stuff, and you're looking at, you know, when the Black Lives Matter folks tried to get up there to the Capitol, they were stopped, and they
Right.
were stopped, and they couldn't go in, and then you looked at what was lined up against them. Okay, I did not see that presence.
It wasn't there.
I did not see, and neither did I see them retaliate against them, just kind of pushing and trying to hold their ground. Who told you not to fight? Now, this is a situation where they're pushing you. They're agitated and they're coming. You didn't even have that, and you were throwing these people down at the Black Lives Matter thing. But at this one, where they are attacking you, you're not attacking back.
Because
Why?
they were told not to.
Thank you.
They were told to stand down.
Thank you. And that's got to come out. They're talking about, they're looking at that, and they're doing this investigation. I guess all this is going to come out, and at whose direction was it?
And I'd like to have a conversation about what they're going to do about all of those Republican senators that voted against him being
Yeah.
tried.
Oh, you mean the few that voted against him?
That was enough to turn it down. So who are those people? And they voted against impeachment. And so,
Right.
and against all the rest of the stuff. So they should not be coming back ever.
Right.
And they should all be arrested because they're complicit, as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
Do I have this right that people who are the descendants of those who lost the Civil War are still angry, and they're angry because they couldn't own another human being? Is that what I'm to conclude?
I don't know if that is if that's the logic or the thinking that they have, you know, when you see them with the flags and all that, because they're trying to go back to that day. There's no going back to that time. You know, Black folks back then were slaves and things of that nature. Not now. You can't, you know, your mentality might want to go back there. I think that it's a power play, meaning we're losing the power base we have. We're losing our numbers. And they showed that years ago that it was going to change. Years ago, brown and Black folks were going to, the change was going to come. Yes, right. Time magazine wrote about it years ago. And they kind of pinpointed, well, it's happening. And people who have been in power for so long don't want to give it up. They don't want to give it up. And if you look at the ex-president that we had, he didn't want to give up his either. And this is what when you turn to brute force and sicking people on folks, you know, you this is your last step. And, you know, and again, what is the mentality? You can't own people. You may want to. And, you know, and they've got cases where if they see a lone Black young man out there, they were hanging him from a tree.
Right.
We're not going back to that. Okay, we're not going back to that. And one man, they were getting ready to do that too. And this was on Facebook, and the video was on there. And had he not been sitting with his white friends who came to his to help him, they said, hey, wait a minute, he's our friend. What are you doing? They were getting ready to hang him. They were getting ready to hang him. There was nobody out there. They're out there in the woods, and they're out there looking at the, you know, nature and all that. They didn't know he was with them. Now, when the country takes this kind of turn, you know, this is serious, and this is very scary situation. And it's not the majority, but it may be those numbers that we looked at that represent Trump.
And Trump showed us that, though. Trump showed us with the Central Park Five. And he tried to do a whole smear campaign and tried all but tried to hang him on Fifth Avenue.
Right. And never apologized. And never apologized for running the ads in the paper.
None of that.
Back then. Okay. And probably, probably never going to apologize.
No.
Okay. And never apologizing for any of the things when he was trying to, you know, say the negative things about Obama and the birther issue and all of that. You don't get, I'm sorry I did something wrong. This is not something that's not in the DNA of the individual.
Right.
It's not him. He's
That's
not
right.
going to do that. You got other presidents, of course, be it Obama, be it, quite a few that if they did something wrong, they said it, but not that one. Not that one. I mean,
Shameful.
anytime they lie and then the man comes out with a book and he says, he's got the recording going. Well, yeah, I lied. I just didn't want people to get upset and get worried about it.
That's his MO.
What do
Why
you
are you
mean?
expecting something else?
You're causing the disease to spread. And when you say don't put a mask on, et cetera, and folks were like, well, our president doesn't wear a mask. And then you see where all these people are getting sick and it's spreading like wildfire. And and now when they said that, this variant, okay, that makes it an extension of what we already had. So, hopefully every now and then I'll see somebody walking through Sam's Club, didn't took the mask off. And I'm like, time for me to get out of here.
They're like lemmings, you follow, or, what was the man's name that John or whatever his name was, the Reverend, and all the people killed themselves?
Jim Jones.
Jim Jones.
Oh,
it's the same mentality.
Drinking the
drinking the Kool-Aid. That's right.
Yeah.
It's just the same. It's that same mentality. And so, if he's walking, he said, just keep going over the cliff. And that's what they did. They're just going to keep going over the wall. Just go over the wall and you'll be all right. And he was right.
And
they're all right.
That's what you saw. That's what you saw when they did that resurrection. That's what you saw when he said, you got to fight like hell. And when they come on and now they're being prosecuted, and this one lady said, I did what I thought he wanted us to do.
Right.
And she's telling the truth. That's the message that came.
Jim Jones.
Right. And exactly. I remember when that happened too. And I could not understand at that time why these people with their children sat up there and they showed all those bodies and how swollen they were from drinking that poisonous Kool-Aid. But they had bought into this whole ideology of what he believed they should do and why. And when you get a brainwashing going on, okay, and you say it over and over and over again, this is part of the practice of brainwashing people. Okay, and you do it on social media because you've got, when they cut him off, that was probably the best thing they could have done.
Should have done a long time ago.
Right, because he kept saying the same thing over, over. And it didn't matter that the Republicans who were in place, who were over elections, etc., were not going to lie. And they had done the job they were supposed to do, which was a stellar job of making sure this was one of the best, well done elections possible in Atlanta, in Georgia. So, and then you want him to lie. You want him to lie. You're that desperate, and just the other day they said he was still saying, well, I won the election, but it was stolen from me. And I'm like, there are a lot of places that are run by Republicans and you lost. So, but are they wrong too? See, and people that are listening and they're going along with, like you said, the Jim Jones thing. You're not really hearing the differences and the conflict of what is in the statements that are being made. You got to really listen and see what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. I don't care.
They're not thinking. They have lost their ability to be decision makers, to know right from wrong. The only voice they hear is his, and they have determined that that's the only voice that's necessary.
It's sad, but you're absolutely correct. And law enforcement was part of it. The fact that some of them were officers, and I guess they took their day off and went up there. And these are people, I used to tell officers in my courtroom, you are an extension of me. When you go out there, you have to be respectful to people. And I've had situations where people pled guilty, but said, but judge, this man called me a black bitch. And I said, what? And I'm looking at him like, because, okay. And I'm saying, did you do that? And he said, I probably did. Ain't no probably. Did you do it?
Mm.
Yes. I said, why? His thing was to have the mentality of the street because no one's going to respect us as white officers out here unless we get tough and have that mentality of the street. I said, did she do anything
Mm.
that would make you call her out of her name? And he said, oh, she didn't. He said, I would like to apologize to her. I said, I think that's an order. And so he walked over to her and said, I'm very sorry that I called you out your name. Please accept my apology. And she looked at him and she said, that's all I wanted. He shook her hand. He said, I'm so sorry. And then she went back to where she was standing. She said, because I was out there. It's July the 4th. We all out there arguing. Yeah, we loud, we rowdy. But I didn't do nothing to him. And I told him, I said, you are an extension of this bench. You have a duty to respect people. Yes, you carry out the law, but you do it in a respectful manner. I said, period. And I said that many times on the bench to officers. And I used to tell officers when they came in there, we're going to have this trial, but understand something, everybody equal in here. I don't care what uniform you wear. If you're giving testimony and it don't make sense to me, I'm going to question you. I said, uniform or not. I said, because I know people with a uniform lie. I had a situation where I had a flat tire and it got on the air. Judge has flat tire, doesn't get help from the police, etc. I said, this was 2 months ago. and but it was on a black radio station. So they called me and they said, Judge, do you mind talking? And I said, no, I don't mind talking. I went into the police station. I asked for help. I had a flat tire. I said, my girlfriend said, oh, yeah, we right here at the police station. They'll come help us. I said, I don't know them to be that way. I said, but I'm going to go in there and ask. And the lady who was waiting on me is a black officer. She said, well, I don't know who we have. I said, well, look at all of them in the back. They're in there eating potato chips and sitting around laughing and giggling back there. Can you ask one of them? So she said, well, I'll ask. And she went, she said something. She came back, said they were all too busy. I said, my girlfriend said, tell them you're a judge. I said, I'm not. I'm not going to tell them I'm a judge. They should want to help citizens. I said, in another 2 hours, it's going to be dark out here. I said, we got a flat tire. It's going to be dark. Nobody's going to help us change this tire. I got a tire in the back of the car. And so I said, where's your supervisor? I said, that lady, that name right there. She said, that's her. There was a white lady. So I said, I waited till she came off of her phone call. And she said, can I help you? And I said, yes. I said, I just need someone to help me put my tire on because we have a flat right in front of your building. And she said, well, we're not in the business of changing tires. And I looked at her and I said, I'm well aware of what you're in the business of. I still didn't tell her. My girlfriend was fighting at the bit to tell her, I'm not, no. And so I said, that's your name. I got my legal pad out. I wrote her name down. And as I was doing this, an officer walked in from off the street and my girlfriend stopped. And she said, can you help us? She said, we're right there. We just need someone to help us change our flat tire. He said, you got a tire? She said, let me log this in. He said, take me like 5 minutes. I'll come back out. I'll help you. And my girlfriend looked, she said, he's going to help us. And we went back out to the car, but the sheriff's department was right next door. So I had already been to the sheriff's department and the guy told me, he said it was two of them, one black, one white. Black guy was waiting on somebody. The white guy didn't have anybody. So I went to him and he said, well, I can't leave my desk. And do you have like AAA? Well, if I had that, I wouldn't be asking you. I said, no. And he said, well, I don't know what to tell you because I can't leave my desk. So I left. And that's when I went to the police. And then I had my little run in with them. So I'm back outside. I see the black sheriff come out. And he comes up to me. He said, hi. He said, I saw my partner kind of, blow you off. He said, did you have a problem? And I said, yeah, I have this tire is flat. I just needed help change. He said, I can do that right now. And I said, you will? And he said, yeah. So I popped open the trunk and he changed in less than 10 minutes. And I said, I want to thank you. I said, I had my legal pad. I said, what's your name? And I wrote his name down. I said, by the way, I'm Judge Lloyd. He said, oh, he didn't know. He didn't change the tire and everything. I said, no,
Didn't matter to him.
no, didn't matter. I said, what's your buddy's name in there? Because I'm writing up this letter. And I'm writing you for helping me and him for ignoring me. So I said, he should have wanted to help. I said, but he didn't. And he said, oh wow. He said, I don't want to get him in trouble. I said,
Late.
either save me a little shoe leather, because I'm gonna walk back in there. You know how you got your name right there? He got his right there too. And even if he don't open up his mouth, I can write his name down. He gave me his name. In the meantime, here comes the 2 police officers that were coming to help us. And I said, I already got help. But I took their names down.
To thank
And
him. To thank him.
Yep, I thanked them for at least saying they would help me. And I said, I told them who I was, and I wrote the letter to the chief of police as well as the main sheriff. I wrote 2 letters, and the sheriff called me right away, and he sent me a letter. He said he was going to put the letter in as accommodation for the black sheriff who helped me, but for the one that didn't, he was going to go into a training class how to deal with the public. And he said, if you have any other problems, don't hesitate to contact me. We had a black chief of police at that time who never responded to me, never responded at all. Okay. And I call it went into the round file, boom. Right. And so I said, but 2 months later, all of a sudden, this incident comes up. and they TV cameras want to come in the courtroom. I wouldn't let them come in. And I said, for a flat tire, my mother calls me. She said, baby, you were on the news. She said, you all right? I said, Mom, I'm fine. I said, this happened, a few weeks ago, a couple months ago. And so then I said, this is ridiculous. And then, like I said, I got a call from the black radio station. And I said, well, when I campaigned, you all were very nice to me. You were fair. I don't mind being on there. And he said, well, hold on, Judge Lloyd. We have an officer on the phone talking now. And I said, okay. So I'm listening to this officer. Yeah, she came in, she threw her weight around, said she was a judge and this and that. And I was like, what? And they said, well, we have Judge Lloyd on the phone right now. And she said she didn't say anything. He said, click. Got off the phone real quick. And they said, oh, looks like the officer hung up. Yeah, because he lied. Let me say something. So, and I'd been told the whole story, and the lines lit up. People were saying the judge should have been helped, not because she was the judge, because she's a woman out there. And they said they should have just helped. And then a white officer called from a suburb, and he said, we help all our women. And we would have helped Judge Lloyd because she was a woman out there that was in distress. He said, that's the way we treat our women. So overwhelmingly, the public was saying she should have been helped. And they said, this is a judge who day after day is looking out for the lives of the people here, and sometimes has to incarcerate people to protect you. And she's out there as a target, and you're not going to help her. So I know they lied. They lied on me.
Right. So, and you have to be honest. You have to be truthful. The reality is that every one of those officers, and it's across the nation, needs diversity training. They need to understand that they work for the public. My tax dollars pay for your job, whether you want to deal with it or not, and you need to respect me.
Right.
Judge,
when
Judge,
go ahead.
I got to get this in, Marsha.
Okay.
What?
So, Judge, we asked Marsha to do double duty today. We normally let her go after an hour of servitude, but we told her that you were coming, and so Marsha, is she the bomb or what?
Yeah, she the bomb. We like you. We
Thank
like you. You know what I like about you? And I'm a straight up, no chaser kind of chick, girl.
Okay.
I like the fact that you're straight up, that you're honest, and moreover, that you take care of our people and you do a reality check. And I was not kidding when I said to you that you need to do some classes for some of your peers, because they don't know how to deal with people. That is a business for you. That's a side business that whenever you retire, whatever you're going to do, that needs to occur, because there are too many police out here and their leadership that are detached from the people that they're supposed to be taking care of.
Right.
And it becomes a war between the citizens of these cities and these policemen or sheriffs or whatever these law enforcement agencies are. And they make an assumption
Right.
about our people rather than handling in a professional, trained manner. This is a whole area that really needs to be dealt with, that
I agree.
really needs some deep diving. So
I
you
agree.
set up the
I
business,
agree.
I'll come and talk.
Okay. I agree with you because one of the things is that when officers come into a courtroom, you see how they look at the public. I have a chapter in my book that I said this is to my colleagues. I said, I had one philosophy: treat people the way you would want to be treated. It is just that simple.
That's right.
It is just as simple.
That's right.
You don't want to be treated like you don't matter. You don't want to be treated like I don't want to hear what you got to say.
Right.
You don't want to be treated such a way where the judge never looks up at you. You just a number, blah, 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 blah. Just say, okay, next. You don't want to be treated that way. I was on the bench my first year, maybe the 5th or 6th month, 7th month, and I was doing a bunch of cases. And this one white boy, I had done his case, gave him his fine. He went in the back and sat down. And then after I finished that whole courtroom full of people, I said, that same boy, I did you already. You were in the beginning. And he said, yeah, I wanted to say something to you. And I said, okay. So he went back up to the podium and he said, I've been in front of a lot of judges. He said, I mean, that's not bragging. He said, because I'm out there sometimes. He said, but he said, I've never been in front of a judge who talked to me like I was a human being. I mean, you actually looked at me. He said, and you talked to me. I said, well, that's what I'm supposed to do. He said, well, most judges don't do that. Some of them don't even look up at you. And I said, well, I do. And that's why when I did drug court, I would look at a defendant, or when defendants came back, maybe I sanctioned them 3 days in jail. Okay, you got positive screens, et cetera, et cetera. This is your second time. You're going to sit down. You're going to think about this for a minute. You're going to come back. And I had lawyers in there that weren't always in my courtroom. I have some that were always in there every single day helping the defendants, but I had some that came in representing other people. And this one lady said, every time I come in here, you have defendants that you put in jail and they wave goodbye to you. And they say, see you in a few days, Judge. And I said, okay, see you then. And then she said, or the ones that come back and say, we're so glad to see you. And I said, mm-hmm. And so she said, you're the only judge. I come in the courtroom, I end up crying at some of these cases that you have in front of me. She said, I can't take it anymore. She said, it's like I get so emotionally involved. I said, one guy said, Judge, I read about you in the paper. It said, angel in the courtroom. And I started laughing. I said, you get newspapers in the jail? And he said, yeah, we get newspapers in the jail. And I laughed and he said, I said, why are you bragging about me? I locked you up. And he was in there for like 3 days. And he said, well, I know why I was here. He said, because you care about us. You want us to think. We know this ain't a punishment. This is you telling us to get ourselves together. He said, we love you. He said, we love you and we brag. This is our judge. When I went, I did a surprise visit to the women's jail. And they said, we had a rumor that you might be coming. That's what the high up officers. I said, I want to go down into the pot. And if it's like, arena, and then it's down in there where everybody's tables and stuff. And she said, I'll go with you. And so she's afraid. She don't want nothing happening to the judge, And so I said, some of my girls are locked up. They're getting ready to come back to me. So I want to see how they do. And I said, I'm making a surprise visit. And so I get up there where these other officers are, because they can look down on all of them and watch them. She said, she said, okay, that's where the women are. I said, I want to go down in there. She said, you want to go down there? I said, mm-hmm. And so she said, okay, well, we'll take you down. I said, I don't need you to take me down. They said, you want to go by yourself? I said, mm-hmm. So I said, I walked down there, and my girls saw me come, and they ran and they hugged me, and they said, Jared. And the ones that didn't know me, they looked at me, who is she?
Mhm. Right.
Who is she?
Right.
And they said, I'm gonna be back in front of you
Human
Monday.
being.
And I got it,
Yeah.
I got it now, Judge. I said, okay. I
A
said,
human
bottom
being.
line, I wanted to see how you were doing. I said, take
Who
me to
made
eat.
you this way? Who made you this way?
Mhm.
My mother, my father,
Mhm.
my
A
mother,
human
and my
being.
father. You know, when
With a heart.
you read about in the book about how I was discriminated against when I was 15. And I had never, I'd never been discriminated against, and this was by a white teacher. And it hurt me to my core. It really hurt me to my core. And it changed me. Okay. That lady ended up flunking me. And I said, Mama, I said, I had taken about 2 or 3 exams. I had flunked each one with 4 Black kids in the class, including me. And I said, she won't. I raised my hand. She looks at me and rolls her eyes and says, well, since we'll move on. I said, Mama, she and I had transferred from a school where I had straight A's. So, and when I walked in there that day to even sign in, she said, are you in the right classroom?
Mm.
And I said, yes. I said, it says room 212. And then she said, this is honors geometry. I said, mm-hmm. And she said, are you sure this is the right class for you? I said, yes. And she said, take a seat in the back.
Mm.
So I went to the back. It was the longest walk I've ever walked. I said, because I felt unwanted.
Yeah, man, walking almost.
Right. I said, I wanted to just leave. I wanted to run on out the door. Give me another class to go to because I haven't done anything. And that was the beginning for me in that classroom. And so the boy in front of me, who was a little Jewish boy, he would, if I got 65, he got 66. That's where the line for a D minus stopped.
Mm.
And then the E was mine. Okay. So I said, she won't call. I said, Mama, she won't. I said, I'm going to flunk this class. And my mother said, baby, you got to teach yourself. And I said, what do you mean teach myself? I'm looking for the teacher to teach me. I'm only 15. And so she said, you have to teach yourself. I said, how do I do that? She said, you go page by page, start with number 1 and number 2. And then take the practice test. Go back to the test you didn't pass. Take it over again. See what answers you get. And my face was swollen from crying, and my eyes were swollen. And I said, okay. I went in my room, closed the door, started page 1, just like she told me. Remember now, she my mama. She said, I can't teach you. I never had geometry. Your daddy can't teach that to you. He didn't have it either. Leona's, my sister's in what did they call it? It was some kind of advanced algebra. So I'm the only one. They split us up. So I'm the only one in geometry. And I kept doing this. I tuned her out every day I went in class. I just didn't even pay attention anymore. And I kept studying. And I kept studying. And I kept everything I was doing. And I told my girlfriend, I said, I understand geometry.
A squared plus B squared equals C squared all day long in Africa and East Detroit, everywhere. They can't stop you.
Right. And my girlfriend said, how did you learn? I said, I taught myself. Now, one kid telling that to another kid is like, yeah, right. And so I said, I said, but I understand it. And
Right.
then the teacher said, we're going to have a test on Friday. I said, I'm already up there to where we are.
Mm-hmm.
And I told my girlfriend, I said, I'm ready. And when the test came, I went and did the little test. And the next day she passed them back. She would go up and down the aisle, give you yours on your desk. And there was a big B on mine. And I said, today I would have said yes, but we didn't say that back then. Right. And I said, and she looked at me and she said, relatively easy exam. Well, the boy in front of me, he's still getting a D.
Right.
Okay, he's still getting his perpetual B's. I got a B. Every test from that point on was B's and B pluses, B's and B pluses. Midterm,
she didn't give you that A.
She flunked me. She gave me, and she did it in red. And she took the H for honors and turned it into an R for regular. She wanted the message to me was, little black girl, you shouldn't have been in this class.
But oh, God has something special planned, Judge. You got to
Yes.
bring it home. Come on,
Yeah, okay.
man.
Okay, well, I said, my mother tried to meet with her. She didn't show up. She didn't show up to the counselor's office.
Wow.
The counselor said, you got a choice. Take it over again or do a different class of algebra. I said, I'm taking it over. That grade is not staying on my transcript. She said, no, it'll be taken off. The grades will be blended and then you'll get the average of the two grades. I said, fine. I took it, and the first exam that this geometry teacher gave us, another white teacher, she gave, and I did it within like 15 minutes. Walked up there, gave it to her, sat back down. She looked at me, and she looked at the paper. She thought I didn't do anything. She started grading it, and then she turned it over and looked at me. Every test I did that way, every test. And she looked, and she just said, One time she put a thing on the board, and she said, who can do this problem? Well, a young man named Einstein rose his hand up and I rose mine. And she picked him and he went up there and did it. She said, how many think he's right? Everybody in the class put their hands up. How many think he's wrong? I raised mine. And she said, okay, Miss Lloyd, come up here and you do the problem. So I took erased what he did and I redid it. And I sat down. They said, how many think Miss Lloyd is right? Hardly nobody put their hand up. And she said, Miss Lloyd is correct. And I was like, don't tell me. I know I'm right. I know. And when she gave me my final A, she looked at me, she handed me my card. She said, I knew right away, early on, you should not be here because you know geometry. I just don't understand why you're here. I said, I'm here because I'm not supposed to know geometry. And she shook her head like this and put her head down. But from that day forward, I spoke up. And I say this in the book because I want a lot of young people to understand you speak up against what's wrong. Right. I don't care what it is. I was like that after that. I taught my kids when I became a teacher to speak out, right? To not be afraid, to understand. You got a question, challenge me. That's no problem. That's no problem. You know, the bottom line, I don't ever want someone to treat them like I was treated. Right. You're not invisible. She made me feel I was invisible and unworthy. She made me feel like maybe I don't belong in this class.
But you thank God for that woman at this point.
That's right.
Oh, yeah. Indirectly, she showed me how strong I really was. She showed me
you needed
how
that.
Nobody. When I got ready to run for council, I said, me and my sister said, we probably won't win, but we deserve to be able to represent the Black students in this school. And I said, we didn't have the money to put the big posters up like everybody else. We had little posters handmade by me and my sister 3 days before the election. This is how God works. Okay, this is how I say in the book, stuff happened to me and my sister. I can't explain to you why, except he was there. He puts people in place for you. Okay, it's just that simple. We saw signs, huge ones, painted of 2 Black girls, both of them, both of Lloyd and Lloyd. And I said, Leona, look. And she said, wow. And then we turned the corner. There's another one. We went downstairs. Everywhere we looked, they were all over the place. We had a guardian angel. We didn't even know who. Don't know to this day who did it.
What?
And we won hands down. The first time I won the election was then when I ran for judge.
No more, Judge. I had enough. I need a break. You got me crying tears of joy.
It's powerful.
It's when people say you can't, when people say it's impossible, that's when you dig in.
The fire. That's when
you dig in. And I got that as a kid. So when you asked me that before about where did it come from? It came from parents. They didn't have an idealistic life. I tell about the hardships they had. How my mother had subarachnoid hemorrhage. I talk about all that and how it affected her. But she had made us strong. And it didn't matter that temporarily she had changed. And she had, this was not the mother we knew. This was a mother that, came about because of a nervous breakdown. And she had 2 of them. And I said, no matter what, I said, Leona, we're going to have to move on campus because mama's going to take the car. And it's not because she needs the car. because she wasn't working. My father was the only one working. So I said, but we are going to finish school.
Right.
And
Period.
so all my father said, he saw us, we packed our little 1 or 2 boxes of clothes we had. And he said, where are they going? And we said, the dorm. And when I wrote down the address so my father would know. My father understood. He couldn't come between my sister and I and my mother.
Right.
He was in the middle. Okay. And it was a bad place to put him. And drinking started occurring with him because of that. And so he came that night unannounced. He wanted to know where his daughters were living.
Yes.
Came to check it out, gave us $50 each. He had tears in his eyes. I said, Daddy, we got drawers of canned food. See, we're going to be all right. My father looked at us and was like, my babies.
Mm-hmm.
We had the strength and the determination to keep going.
It's powerful.
And that's what I say in the book over and over again, that I don't care what you're trying. I don't care what it is. I said, you get a plan and you stick to the plan and make it a big one. Make it something that everybody thinks is totally ridiculous.
Yes.
Why are you even trying?
That's
If
right.
I told you how many people told me I was crazy to go to law school and give up my teaching job that I had just got permanently certified for, I had passed all that. I said, because I don't want to stay there. I said, I don't want to stay there, even though I love teaching. And I talk about how much I loved it. I talk about how much I changed stuff around in there. A program I started was like the Oscars. They're still doing that to this
I
very
love
day.
it. That's
Still
powerful.
doing it.
Yes.
And it's to make kids feel positive. Because when I entered that department, they were protesting the teachers. They were, I said, what's happening? These kids took over the department.
Right.
And I said, well, I refuse to be part of that. And all they did was say, well, Miss Lloyd, she kind of on the crazy side. See, they said, we're not going to mess with her. She just took over their favorite teacher's spot. But they went after the whole department. And I said, you can't take hate and match it with hate. Love is the only thing that's going to conquer.
Well,
and I said,
right.
and we have to put our arms around. So my department head, and she's a Jewish lady, she looked at me, she said, how are we going to do that? I said, let's honor them. And I said, create a night for them. And then everybody was supposedly too busy. She said, well, will you do it? And I say, yeah. And I talk about the book, Unorthodox Way, how I did it, and which made her on edge because she was spending all this money, because I wanted her to for this night, and it was at a lavish place. And I said, the kids are going to dress up, they're going to come, and it's going to be the Oscar night. And then she just looked at me, she shook her head, she put her hands up in the air, and I hope you're right. And at the line, we had sold out of tickets. We had sold out.
That's
I
wonderful.
said the restaurant had 50 extra plates just in case, and we used them. The bottom line was I had faith. I had
Yes.
faith in what
The
I was
size
doing.
of a mustard seed.
Exactly. And I had a necklace like that my grandmother gave us when we were
I
little.
love it. I love it.
Judge,
I
we
love
could do
it.
this all day. Put up your book. Let us see your book one more time. Special thank you to Pam Perry, PR. She is the bomb. You are the bomb.
Yes. Yes.
Your honor, your honor.
I love it. I love it. This is
That's it.
powerful. Judge
We're-
Leonia Lloyd, thank you. Thank you.
Amazon,
Thank
Barnes
you.
and Noble.
It's on Amazon.com, and you can go on my site, www.judgeleonia, LEONIA.com, and you see trailers, you see all kinds of stuff on there. You'll see how to get on that site by hitting a button. Just go to judgeleonia.com.
This will be
judgeleonia.com.
the last time we speak with you. You've blown me away. You've blown Marsha away. Marsha.
First of all, and I don't say things I don't mean. And I'm a straight up, no chaser kind of chick, right?
Right.
And I can feel your authenticity here.
Thank you.
And you have a heart, and you have a heart for our people.
Yes.
And I will forever respect you and forever love you in all that you're doing. And I feel honored to be here with you today. And I hope that this is just the beginning of getting to know you more, and we'll have you back again. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm not playing about the little consulting business, because you need to really take that seed and go pray on that. I
Okay.
think that you have you have something really huge here. There aren't, I don't know any other judge that has your spirit and has the love and care for the people that you serve. And I really want you to pray on that. I think that there are far too many people that need to hear your words and need to be trained to handle their business in a courtroom.
Yes, I agree.
Really. I just don't sleep that. You need to pray on that. Really. I
And you
think
stand on the
the world
shoulders.
would change. The world can change. That whole penal system can change. That whole justice system can change if people know what they're supposed to do. There's one thing to get a book. There's one thing, get a classroom, get a degree. There's one thing to be able to get, the little judgeship, if you have to be voted in or otherwise appointed. But the egos get too much in the way, and their personal opinions cloud their decisions. And they're
Right.
not supposed to be personal. They're supposed to be open and neutral and hear the case and learn the people and what they're doing to be able to make those decisions. And in far too many courtrooms, that's not occurring.
That's true.
And it needs to change, but you can't change if people don't even know or recognize the hatred that they show in a courtroom to people who look like us.
And Judge, I just want to thank that white lady. She was your
Yes.
crucible.
Yep.
She was the crucible
That's
that
right.
God put in your life. And had it
That's
not
right.
been for that crucible,
That's
Right.
right.
the gold, that
Right.
purity,
That's
would
right.
not come out.
Go
You're
ahead. That's
you're
right.
absolutely right,
That's
because
right.
sometimes you learn from the negative things that happen
Yeah.
as well as the positive,
No
and
question.
the lessons that you say, this happened to me, but why? What's the lesson?
The
What's
lesson
the
was
lesson,
that you
Leonia?
taught yourself.
Yeah.
The lesson was you taught yourself geometry. The
Right.
lesson was that you can do all things. That was a lesson.
Yes.
That was a lesson.
Yes,
That
it
was a
was.
lesson.
We
That
love
was
you,
a
Judge.
lesson.
We thank
I
God
love
for Perry PR for meeting you. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
love
Thank
I
you.
love
Thank
you
you.
all, and I enjoyed this. Thank you for having me, and I'll come back anytime you want me.
Great. We'd love that. Take care.
Okay.
Hey, down tomorrow. Do your day and everything will follow. Nothing to it but to do it. I got to do it, regardless of how I feel. I am somebody. I am my brother's keeper. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good
Bye-bye.
afternoon.